She walked into my kitchen with a notary like she owned the place. My daughter-in-law smiled and slid a stack of papers across my table. Then she said, "All you have to do is sign, Linda." If you've ever had someone try to play you for a fool because they thought you were just the older woman in the family, you're going to feel this one in your bones. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon. The kind of quiet where you can hear the ceiling fan ticking like it's counting down to something bad. My name is Linda Carter. I'm a widow, and a month before my son got married, I inherited my late husband's ranch, Carter Ridge, 200 acres outside a small town in Texas. I didn't tell anyone. Not my son Ethan. Not my sister. Not even my best friend. Because I had this strange feeling in my gut that the second people heard the word inheritance, they'd stop seeing me and start seeing what I owned. And I hate that I was right. Before I continue, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you love revenge stories like this, hit like and subscribe. It means everything. Now listen. Ethan is my only child. He's the kind of man who holds doors open, calls his mama every Sunday, and cries during dog movies like he's tough enough to admit it. I raised him to be loyal, kind, soft in the best way. So when he brought home Madison, all perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect laugh, I wanted to like her. I really did. At first she was sweet. Almost too sweet. "Mrs. Carter, your home is so cozy. Mrs. Carter, I love your cooking. Mrs. Carter, Ethan says you're the strongest woman he knows." But every compliment felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in the mirror. Still, Ethan was glowing. He looked at her like she'd hung the moon. And after losing my husband, Ray, I wasn't about to take joy away from my son just because my instincts were twitching. Ray passed suddenly, heart attack while checking the south fence line. One day he was here, smelling like cedar and coffee. The next day I was picking out a suit for a man who hated wearing suits. The ranch was Ray's pride. Everyone in town knew it. The land had been in his family for generations, and Ray worked it like it was a living thing. He used to say, "Linda, this ranch is the only thing that'll outlive us." Turns out, he meant it. The lawyer told me the ranch went to me, not Ethan, not some trust, me. And right there, sitting in that office with Ray's name on the will, I made a decision. I told Ethan I inherited some assets, and Ray left everything organized. I didn't say the word ranch. I didn't say the word land. I didn't say the number of acres. Because Ethan is good, but people around him, people who could influence him, that part worried me. The wedding came fast. Madison picked the venue, the colors, the cake flavor, everything. Ethan just nodded like a happy golden retriever. And at the reception, Madison leaned close to me, her voice soft as honey. "So, Linda, Ray left you comfortable, right?" I remember blinking at her, champagne glass halfway to my mouth. "Comfortable enough," I said carefully. Her smile tightened, just for half a second, like I'd given the wrong answer. Then she laughed like she hadn't asked anything at all. A week after the honeymoon, she showed up at my house. Not with Ethan. With a man in a cheap suit holding a leather folder. "A notary," Madison announced brightly, like she'd brought cookies. My stomach dropped so hard I swear I felt it hit the floor. She sat at my table without waiting to be invited. She spread out documents like she'd done it 100 times. And she pointed to a line with a manicured nail. "This is just a simple transfer," she said. "For family. For the future." I stayed at the papers. At the words quitclaim deed. At my husband's ranch name printed at the top. And then I looked up at Madison's face, still smiling, like she'd already won. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just asked one question that made her blink. "Madison," I said quietly, "where did you get the property description for land I never told you I owned?" Her smile started to slip. And right then, I realized this wasn't greed. This was a plan. And they'd been working it long before that notary ever stepped foot in my kitchen. Before that notary ever sat at my table, before those papers ever touched my hands, life looked normal. That's the dangerous part. On the surface, everything seemed fine. Almost peaceful. Ethan and Madison settled into married life fast. Too fast, if you ask me. They rented a new place closer to town, farther from my house, farther from the ranch. Madison said it was more practical. Less driving, more opportunity, less dust. She hated dust. I saw Ethan once a week, sometimes twice. He still hugged me the same way, still called me mama, still asked if I was eating enough. But something subtle had shifted. He listened more than he talked. And when Madison was around, his eyes always flicked to her before he answered anything, like he was checking his lines. Madison, on the other hand, leaned in harder. She called me Linda now, not Mrs. Carter. She texted me at odd hours. She invited herself over. At first, I told myself it was just enthusiasm, a new wife trying to bond, trying to secure her place in the family. But the questions started stacking up. So, Ray handled the ranch finances, right? Property taxes must be crazy out there. Land like that usually goes straight to the kids, doesn't it? Each question came wrapped in a laugh. Each one sounded casual, but they never came alone. They always came after she'd complimented something. My cooking, my curtains, my strength, like payment. One afternoon, she walked around my living room slowly, touching things that didn't belong to her. Ray's old hat on the hook, framed photos from the early days of the ranch. She paused longest at a picture of Ray and Ethan standing by the fence line. That land really meant everything to Ray, she said. Yes, I answered. It did. She nodded. Then she said, Ethan should be proud to carry that legacy. Something in her tone made my chest tighten. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just watched. The more I stayed quiet about the ranch, the more interested Madison became in everything adjacent to it. She asked about survey markers. She asked about water rights. She asked if Ray ever mentioned selling. Selling? That word stuck with me. Ethan never asked those questions. Not once. When I tried to bring up how sudden all this curiosity felt, Ethan brushed it off. Madison's just planning ahead, he said. You know how she is. Organized. But I didn't know how she was. Organized people ask questions. Calculated people ask specific questions. Then came the comments. Little ones. Tossed out like jokes. Well, eventually all that land will be Ethan's anyway. Family property should stay in the family, right? It would be such a shame if something happened to it. Each time, she smiled. Each time, Ethan stayed quiet. I started noticing other things too. Madison suddenly knew the name of Ray's old attorney. She mentioned a zoning issue I'd never discussed. She once corrected me about the acreage size. That night, I went to bed with my heart pounding and Ray's words echoing in my head. People show their hands when they think you're not looking. I told myself I was being paranoid. Grief does that to you. Loss rewires your fear. But then I found something small. Something stupid. Something easy to miss. Madison had left her phone on my counter while she used the bathroom. The screen lit up with a notification. A text preview. Once she signs, it's done. She won't fight it. No name attached. No context beyond that. Just certainty. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't read more. I didn't confront her. But for the first time since Ray died, I felt truly alone in my own family. And I realized something terrifying. Whatever Madison was planning, she didn't just expect me to agree. She expected me to be easy. And that was the moment I started wondering who else knew what I hadn't said out loud. The moment that changed everything came 3 days after that text notification. I hadn't slept much since seeing it. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Madison's voice layered over that sentence. Once she signs, it's done. I kept telling myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe it was about something else. Maybe I was projecting fear where there was none. So I decided to test the silence. I invited Ethan over alone. No Madison. No excuses. He showed up late afternoon, hands in his pockets, smile a little forced. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one Madison would later claim like a battlefield, and drank coffee that went cold between us. I asked him simple things at first. How work was going. how married life felt, whether the new place was settling in. Then I asked, Ethan, has Madison been asking you questions about your dad's estate? He didn't answer right away. That pause told me more than words ever could. She's just curious, he finally said. You know how she is. I nodded, slowly. And has she talked to any lawyers? I asked. That's when he looked up. Why would she need to? His voice cracked, just slightly. I leaned forward. Because she seems to know a lot about property I never discussed. He swallowed. She just wants to make sure everything's secure, he said. For the future. There it was again. The future. I decided to push just a little harder. Ethan, I said, keeping my voice steady, has anyone asked you to have me sign documents? His eyes widened. Who told you that? He asked. That was it. No denial. No confusion. Just panic. My heart started pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. So there are documents, I said quietly. He stood up too fast, chair scraping the floor. He started pacing, running his hands through his hair the way he did as a teenager when he was caught doing something wrong. It's not what you think, he said. Madison just wants to simplify things. It's paperwork. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. I stared at him like I didn't recognize the man in front of me. Did you know she brought a notary to my house? I asked. He froze. She what? For a split second, I saw real shock on his face. Real fear. She showed up with legal documents prepared, I continued. Property descriptions. Deed language. All of it. Ethan sat back down slowly. She told me she was going to talk to you, he said. She didn't say, like that. I let the silence stretch. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning a hole in my chest. Ethan, who told her about the ranch? He didn't answer. I stood up. That land wasn't public knowledge yet, I said. The records hadn't even fully updated. Still nothing. Ethan, I said, my voice shaking now, did you tell her? His shoulders sagged. I didn't think it mattered, he whispered. She's my wife. That hurt more than the notary, more than the papers, because that told me something worse. Madison hadn't just stumbled onto the truth. She'd been given access. After Ethan left, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Ray's old filing cabinet. Not for nostalgia. For answers. I pulled tax records, legal correspondence, old emails printed and filed the way Ray liked. I checked dates, names, signatures. That's when I noticed something off. A request for property details sent 2 weeks before the wedding from an unfamiliar email. The subject line read, Preliminary Review, Carter Ridge. My hand started shaking. Someone had been preparing long before vows were exchanged, long before rings, long before I ever suspected betrayal. I sat on the floor with my back against the cabinet, papers spread around me like evidence from a crime scene. And for the first time, the thought formed clearly in my mind. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about family. This was about timing. And whatever Madison was planning, she hadn't just married my son. She'd married into a strategy. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I needed the truth. All of it. Even if it destroyed what was left of my family. I didn't cry right away. That surprised me. I sat there on the floor with Ray's files spread around me, staring at that email like it might suddenly explain itself. Like maybe if I read it enough times, it would turn into something harmless. It didn't. I took the papers to the table and started sorting them by date. Old habit. Ray taught me that. He used to say order was the difference between confusion and clarity. What I found made my stomach twist. There were 3 separate inquiries about Carter Ridge, all from different email addresses, all worded differently, but all asking for the same things: property boundaries, mineral rights, transfer procedures, and all dated before the wedding. One email signature stopped me cold. Madison Hale. Her maiden name. My hands went numb. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't planning for the future. This was preparation. I remembered every time she'd smiled at me, every compliment, every soft laugh, They replayed in my head like a bad movie where you suddenly realize the villain was in every scene. I needed confirmation. Real confirmation. So I did something I never imagined I'd have to do to my own family. I drove into town and sat across from Ray's old attorney, Mark Benson. He recognized me immediately. His face softened when he asked how I was holding up. I almost laughed at the question. I need you to tell me something, I said. And I need you to be honest. I slid the emails across his desk. He adjusted his glasses. Read them slowly. Then he sighed. Yes, he said. She contacted our office. When? I asked. About 6 weeks before the wedding. I gripped the arms of the chair. And what did she say? I asked. She said she was representing her fiancé's interests, Mark replied carefully. She wanted to understand how ownership could be streamlined. Streamlined? My throat burned. Did Ethan authorize this? I asked. Mark hesitated. That told me enough. He was aware she was asking questions, he said. But the requests escalated. Escalated how? She wanted to know how quickly a transfer could be completed if you were willing to sign, he said. She asked about power of attorney, about whether emotional distress could invalidate consent. The room felt like it was shrinking. She asked if grief made someone easier, Mark added quietly. That's when I broke. I didn't scream. I didn't sob. I just put my face in my hands and felt something inside me crack open. My husband had barely been in the ground, and someone was already circling what he left behind. I drove home in silence. When I pulled into my driveway, Madison's car was already there. She was waiting. She stood in my kitchen like she belonged there, coffee mug in hand. Calm, collected. I thought we should talk, she said. I didn't sit down. I know you contacted Ray's attorney, I said. She blinked once, then smiled. I wanted to help, she said. You've been through so much. I laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. You planned this before the wedding, I said. Didn't you? Her smile faltered. Just a little. Ethan deserves security, she said. And honestly, Linda, what are you going to do with all that land? There it was. No more pretending. I'm his mother, I said. Not an obstacle. She stepped closer. You're a temporary steward, she said softly. That's all. Something in me went cold. Did you bring that notary because you thought I was weak? I asked. She didn't deny it. You were grieving, she said. People make decisions they don't fully understand when they are emotional. That was it. That was the moment I truly understood the depth of the betrayal. She didn't just want the ranch. She had counted on my pain to take it. Get out, I said. She laughed, shaking her head. You can't stop this, she said. Ethan's on my side. That hurt more than anything she'd said before. After she left, I locked the door and slid down against it. My chest hurt. My hands shook. My entire body felt hollowed out. I called Ethan. He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I sat there on the floor, staring at Ray's picture on the wall. I failed, I whispered. I failed to protect what you built. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I stared at the ceiling and replayed everything, every sign I ignored, every excuse I made. By morning, my grief had changed. It hardened, because if Madison thought I was going to sign anything out of fear, if she thought I was going to hand over Ray's legacy because I was tired and alone, she was about to learn something very important about me. I wasn't broken. I was just done being gentle. And that was the lowest point. The moment where I realized I had lost my son's trust, my sense of safety, and the illusion that staying quiet would protect me. But it was also the moment where something else began. Resolve. The morning after Madison left my house, I stood at Ray's side of the bed and stared at the empty space where he should have been. For a long time, I just breathed. Then I said it out loud. I'm not letting this go. The words felt strange at first, heavy, but once they left my mouth, something inside me clicked into place. Grief had kept me soft. Fear had kept me quiet. Anger sharpened me. I made coffee and sat at the table where Madison had spread out those papers like she was already in charge. I imagined her confidence, her certainty, The way she assumed the ending had already been written. She didn't know Ray, and she didn't know me. The first thing I did was call Mark Benson back. I need to protect the ranch, I told him. Immediately. He didn't ask questions. He didn't lecture. He just said, then we move fast. By noon, we had a plan. No more delays. No more silence. We started by locking everything down, freezing any transfer attempts, flagging the property, documenting every unauthorized inquiry Madison had made. Mark explained how close she'd already come to creating a legal mess. She was counting on emotional pressure, he said. And timing. Timing. That word again. Next, I called the county office. I requested certified copies of every filing related to Carter Ridge. I wanted a paper trail so clean it could cut glass. Then I did something harder. I called Ethan. He answered this time. Mom, he said cautiously. I need you to listen, I said, and not interrupt. Silence. I know Madison contacted Dad's attorney before the wedding, I said. I know she planned to pressure me into signing while I was grieving. And I know you knew more than you're admitting. His breath hitched. She said she was helping, he said. She said you'd thank her later. I closed my eyes. She's not helping, I said. She's taking. Another pause. What do you want me to do? He asked. That question told me everything. He wasn't asking what was right. He was asking what would keep the peace. I want the truth, I said. And I want you to stop being her shield. He didn't respond. After we hung up, I felt something settle in my chest. Not relief. Not hope. Clarity. I couldn't rely on my son to stop this, so I prepared to stop it myself. I gathered everything Madison had said to me. Text messages, emails, voicemails, every comment about the future, every assumption that the land would eventually be hers. Mark helped me organize it. This isn't just defense, he said. This is leverage. That night, I visited the ranch alone. The sun was setting, painting the fields gold. The fences Ray built were still standing. Strong, steady. I walked the land like I was introducing myself all over again. I'm still here, I told it. And I'm not giving you up. That's when the real plan formed. Madison wanted things quiet, private, controlled. So I decided to do the opposite. I arranged a family meeting. Everyone, Ethan, Madison, my sister, Ray's brother, even a few people Madison thought were irrelevant. I told them it was about honoring Ray's legacy. Madison loved that phrase. She texted back immediately. Finally, this is overdue. I smiled when I read it, because she thought this meeting was her victory lap. In reality, it was her stage. I spent the next few days preparing. Not emotionally, strategically. I practiced what I'd say. Not with rage, with precision. I gathered documents, highlighted dates, marked signatures, and most importantly, I stopped trying to be liked. That was the shift. I wasn't the grieving widow anymore. I wasn't the accommodating mother. I was the woman standing between a manipulator and everything she thought she'd secured. The night before the meeting, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I felt safe, but because I was ready. Ready to let the truth do the damage. Ready to stop protecting people who hadn't protected me. Ready to remind Madison, and anyone else watching, that kindness is not the same thing as weakness. And the next time we all sat at that table, I wouldn't be the one on the defensive. I'd be the one holding the papers. They all showed up. Every single one of them. Ethan arrived first, looking tense, jaw tight, like he already knew something bad was coming but didn't know how to stop it. Madison followed right behind him, heels clicking, posture perfect, confidence wrapped around her like armor. She smiled at me when she walked in. Not warm, not kind, victorious. My sister hugged me. Ray's brother nodded quietly. A few extended relatives filled the chairs around the table. Madison took the seat closest to me without asking. Of course she did. Well, she said brightly, clasping her hands together. This feels overdue. I didn't respond. I stood instead. I asked everyone here because I want to talk about Ray, I said. About his legacy. And about the future of Carter Ridge. Madison leaned back, crossing her legs. Ethan stayed at the table. I slid a folder in front of me. This ranch has been in Ray's family for generations, I continued. And when he died, he left it to me. Fully, legally, intentionally. Madison tilted her head. Of course, no one's disputing that. Not yet. I opened the folder. But what I am disputing, I said, is what's been happening behind my back. I placed the first document on the table. Then another. Then another. Emails. Dates highlighted. Names circled. Madison's smile tightened. These are inquiries made to Ray's attorney, I said. 6 weeks before your wedding. Madison laughed lightly. I don't see the problem. Using your maiden name, I added. Silence. Ethan looked up sharply. I slid the emails closer to him. Did you know about these? I asked. He stayed at the page. His face drained of color. Madison leaned forward. Ethan. Did you know? I repeated. Yes, he whispered. But not like this. That was the first crack. I kept going. I pulled out a transcript of Mark Benson's notes. Highlighted. Madison asked how quickly ownership could be transferred, I said. She asked about power of attorney. She asked whether grief made someone more likely to sign documents they didn't understand. A gasp came from across the table. My sister covered her mouth. Madison stood up. This is being taken out of context, she snapped. I was trying to help. I looked at her. No, I said calmly. You were trying to take. She laughed, sharp and brittle. You're emotional. You're twisting things. I turned to Ethan. She brought a notary to my house, I said. Without telling you. Without telling me. With documents already prepared. He looked at her now. You said you were just talking, he said. You said nothing was happening yet. Madison's face flushed. I was handling it, she said. Someone had to. I reached into the folder one last time and placed the final document on the table, a notarized affidavit. This, I said, is a statement from Mark Benson confirming every unauthorized contact, every inquiry, and every attempt to pressure me into signing over my property. Madison froze. But that's not all, I continued. I slid another paper forward. This is a notice of legal restriction, I said. As of yesterday morning, Carter Ridge is locked under a protective trust. No transfers, no signatures, no pressure. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. And this, I said, placing the final page down, is a cease and desist letter addressed to you, Madison Hale Carter. The room was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. You're no longer allowed to contact my attorneys, my financial institutions, or county offices regarding my property, I said. Any attempt to do so will result in immediate legal action. Madison's confidence collapsed in real time. You can't do this, she said. Ethan, tell her. Ethan didn't move, didn't speak, didn't look at her. You lied to me, he said quietly. You used my dad's death. She turned to him, eyes wild. I did this for us. No, he said. You did this for you. That was it. That was the moment. Madison grabbed her purse. Her hands were shaking now. This isn't over, she said to me. You think you've won, but I have, I said, because you don't get to touch what you plan to steal. She stormed out. The door slammed so hard the picture of Ray rattled on the wall. No one spoke for a long time. Then Ethan stood up. I need time, he said. I didn't see it. I should have. I nodded. I know, I said. After everyone left, I sat alone at the table. The papers were still there. But this time, they weren't a threat. They were proof. Proof that silence didn't protect me, but truth did. And as I looked around the empty room, one thought settled deep and solid in my chest. She came for my weakness. She left with nothing. The house felt different after that meeting. Quieter, heavier, like the walls themselves were processing what had just happened. I didn't clean the table right away. I let the papers sit there for a while, stacked neatly, no longer dangerous but still powerful. Evidence of what happens when you stop doubting yourself. Madison didn't come back. Not that day. Not the next. Not ever. Ethan called me 2 days later. His voice sounded smaller. Tired. She moved out, he said. Took some clothes. Nothing else. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel relieved. I felt sad. Not for Madison. For my son. I'm sorry, he said. I should have protected you. I closed my eyes. I didn't raise you to protect me, I said. I raised you to tell the truth. There was a long pause. I'm filing for separation, he said. That one hurt. But it also felt inevitable. Trust doesn't crack loudly. It erodes quietly, and by the time you notice, there's nothing solid left to stand on. The rest of the family rallied around me in ways I didn't expect. My sister stayed over for a week. Ray's brother started coming by the ranch on weekends, helping mend fences, sharing stories I'd never heard before. People I thought barely noticed me suddenly showed up. Because when the truth comes out, it has a way of rearranging loyalty. Madison tried once more. A text. Short. Cold. You didn't have to humiliate me. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Her silence afterward told me everything I needed to know. The ranch felt like home again. Not just Ray's home. Mine. I spent mornings walking the property, learning it the way he had. I fixed things I'd always let him handle. I learned the rhythm of the land, the quiet strength of it. Ethan came by eventually, alone. We didn't talk about Madison right away. We talked about the weather, about work, about nothing important. Then he said, I didn't know who she really was. I looked at him. She knew who you were, I said gently. That's why she chose you. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I won't let that happen again, he said. I believed him, not because he promised, but because he looked like someone who had learned something painful and permanent. Life didn't snap back into place. It settled. Slowly. Some relationships changed shape. Some didn't survive. And some, surprisingly, grew stronger because they'd been tested. As for me, I stopped shrinking. I stopped apologizing for what I owned, what I knew, and what I felt. I started trusting my instincts again, because they'd been right all along. Madison thought my silence meant surrender. She was wrong. It was patience. And patience, when paired with truth, is far more powerful than rage. The ranch still stands. The fences still hold. And every time I watch the sun rise over Carter Ridge, I feel Ray with me, not as something I lost, but as something I protected. Not everything broken needs to be fixed. Some things just need to be faced. And once you do, you find out how strong you really are. Looking back now, I understand something I didn't back then. Betrayal doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it comes smiling. Sometimes it calls you family. For a long time, I blamed myself. I told myself I should have spoken up sooner. That I should have trusted fewer people. That if I'd been stronger, none of it would have happened. But that's not true. What happened wasn't because I was weak. It happened because someone saw kindness and mistook it for access. If there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's this: you don't owe anyone transparency just because they're related to you. Love does not cancel boundaries. Family does not earn entitlement. Grief makes you vulnerable. Loss makes you quiet. And there will always be people who see those moments as opportunity instead of pain. The world teaches women, especially older women, to be agreeable, to keep the peace, to not rock the boat, to step aside when others decide they know better. But here's the truth no one says out loud. You are allowed to protect what's yours. You are allowed to say no without explaining yourself. And you are allowed to stop being gentle with people who aren't gentle with you. I didn't go looking for revenge. I went looking for justice. And sometimes, justice looks like standing still while someone exposes themselves trying to push you over. If you're listening to this and something in your life feels off, if someone is asking questions they shouldn't, pushing timelines that don't feel right, or making you feel small for hesitating, pause. Listen to that feeling. Silence can be a shield. Patience can be power. And truth, when you finally let it speak, has a way of ending games you didn't even know you were playing. I kept my husband's legacy not because I fought harder than everyone else, but because I stopped doubting myself. And that's something no one can ever take from me. Did you like my story? Please like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story travels. Never confuse your kindness with permission, because the moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you take your power back.